Rebel Force Radio presents
Experimental Unit Clone Force 99. The defective clones with desirable mutations. They call themselves the Bad Batch.
The Bad Batch.
This is the Bad Batch After Show.
All right, Bad Batch After Show, Episode 5, Entombed. It's like one of my greatest fears. Caving. I know people that do that. That's what this episode reminded me of. Tales of friends of mine that I knew in high school that would go caving. You ever know people that do that? And then sometimes they have tour guides and stuff, and I know that, but there's always that chance. One buddy of mine told me a story where he had to fit in this little narrow way, and he had to worm. He had to do the worm through this little narrow passageway. It just couldn't deal with it. So when I saw the name of the episode, I thought, oh man, this is going to be great for my claustrophobia. But it wasn't too bad. It wasn't. There were some wide open spaces there in that mountain. We'll break it all down for you this week on the Rebel Force Radio Bad Batch After Show. So great to be with you once again as we gather together to talk about new Star Wars, and that's always a treat, and especially a great treat when we are hanging out together. This episode, last week sort of gave me the, I think it gave me the patience. Mac kept saying, 16 episodes, let it breathe, have fun with it, and all that. And so I went into this one with, I won't say low expectations, but expectations that I wasn't going to necessarily get a bunch of canon and a bunch of mythology thrown at me. And we didn't. But we did get a fun adventure story, lots of classic tropes, treasure hunting, and that's always good stuff because, that's what it's about. It's about adventure and excitement and fantasy, and we got that in droves here this week. And that guy I was talking about earlier, when I say Mac, I mean, of course, my good friend and yours from Chicago, Jimmy Mac.
Hey, Jason, hey, Star Wars fans. Welcome to another episode of the Bad Batch After Show. This week looking at Entombed, or Omega Jones and the Legend of Scaranal. Yes.
That
It's
does
Omega
sound like an
Jones.
indie title. Scaranal. I can see that.
The Legend of Scaranal. But there's callbacks to all sort of things going on in this episode, but some very notable Raiders of the Lost Ark connections, callbacks, what have you, some real Indiana Jones vibing going on in this show. And just to address what you're talking about earlier, we're kind of in an adventure of the week situation here in the first half of season 2. And I think the bigger mythology stuff is going to start paying off in the second half of the season, where you're going to see a continuation of the story. What's going on in Mount Tantus on the planet Wayland? What's going on with some of the bigger characters that we know? We know the Emperor's coming around to the Bad Batch.
Yes.
And he's going to get their attention at some point. And I think that Mount Tantus storyline is where he's going to come into play to begin with. So for now, we're just having adventures of the week. The X-Files had a mythology running through it. This big, what does Mulder try to hunt down? This big conspiracy, that involves government and aliens, and it's on so many different levels, but that did not possess each and every episode of the X-Files back in the day. Sometimes the best episodes of X-Files were the ones that were just these little standalone creature features and just fun adventures that Mulder and Scully would go on. And so I think we're kind of in that groove right now with the Bad Batch. And as long as it's providing us with stunning visuals and twists and turns like this particular adventure did, then I'm all on board for it,
Yeah.
But I understand, some fans, they get so upset, it's like, oh my God, it's not, I didn't learn anything new in this episode. No, there were no big reveals and stuff. And it's like, every scene can't be the money shot. And sometimes a little foreplay ain't a bad thing. So let's just enjoy these episodes for what they are.
Yes. Yes, and that's what we're going to do.
Fun adventures, big mythology stuff coming up later.
Yeah, we're going to break it all down for you, and we need your phone calls and your chats and your comments and your thumbs ups and all of that. They go a long way to help us out as we talk about Season 2, Episode 5, Entombed, or you might say, Buried Alive. Buried Alive. Directed by Nathaniel Villanueva, written by Christopher Yost. And as always, a great score by Kevin Kiner. And the original air date, January 25th, 2023, for those of you listening to this in the future. Now, let me mention one thing, and I wanted to say this last week, but now we've had another week without this, so I'll just get this out of the way. Something that I feel like they've dropped from last season is this notion of them all having these special skills, and then those skills sort of manifesting in Omega a little bit. It seemed like that's what they were kind of hinting around about. Mm-hmm. And I was all prepared to talk about it last week and this week, and then I saw the moment where Hunter gets the itchy trigger finger before that first monster comes out. And Omega sees, the hand going down. We even as an audience, I think we're tipped off earlier that there's a monster. But in that moment, there's no reason to believe that anybody other than Hunter has got his, for lack of a better phrase, spidey sense tingling. So now I feel like Hunter is the tracker, is the one with those heightened senses. So that was good to see. But overall, I haven't really felt that they've been playing up those particular skill sets, and even less so having them kind of show up in Omega.
Yeah, right. Those are great observations. I think maybe the foundation had already been laid for all of that stuff in season 1, and so it's you don't want to just keep beating that drum. If the fans are already informed and we know what we know, then just give us the characters. And they're setting them off on these little adventures just to build character for them, build experience for Omega, which we don't know how some of these adventures, the experiences she picks up along the way might come into play later in the season too. Especially with this.
Oh, go ahead.
Well, with this Legend of Scaranel, I feel like there was a lot of interesting stuff laid out in front of us in this episode. Most notably, the ancient civilization that outdated the Jedi, and the giant Mechazilla beast. What purpose does that thing really serve? And what's there's a mystery behind that thing that is very unclear. These ancient powers, which I think is really interesting. And I don't know if we'll ever get a payoff for this, if we'll ever really understand what that big beast was all about. And but I found it really compelling how they built it all up. There he is. He's huge.
Yeah.
He is. They just call him the mech in the descriptive track. But I call him Mechazilla.
Wasn't there a mechanical Godzilla in one of the most recent Godzilla movies? I'm not up on those, but I've seen the toys.
Yes.
Mechazilla or something. So there's some
Godzilla. Yeah. He's been around for a while in various incarnations and stuff. Sure. And we all know what a big fan Dave Filoni is of all that Godzilla stuff, for crying out loud.
Who knows? This could have been over a cheeseburger and a milkshake. If you guys can get in a Godzilla reference, you can do whatever you want in that episode. I just want, or no, he calls him, because he's a real fan, he calls him by the Japanese name, Godzilla, whatever that is.
Right. There are some things I like about this beast, as long as we have him up on the screen here and we're talking about him. He's the big mech. Some people have mentioned, hey, he kind of resembles the species from Zepho. Okay. Now, Jason, I know this is probably kind of going deep here, but Zepho is from the Jedi Fallen Order game.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I have the Art of book right here. And he goes to the planet Zepho, Calquetsis, and you can see that there is kind of a resemblance in the shape of the heads
Uh-huh.
of a Zepho
I'm seeing that.
native. And Calquetsis encounters some of these cats throughout his adventures, But a lot of people are pointing it out. Hey, this thing's Zepho, It's it's a Zepho beast. And so I just, from the look alone, I think, that's an interesting conclusion to jump to. Other people are speculating this thing could be an ancient Sith creation.
Yeah, that's where my head was going. The red eyes. I mean, this thing is built to do one thing, and it's just to cause absolute massive destruction. And I guess should we assume that this thing is what's responsible for the planet, the system that they're on, being just all burned to shreds, and nothing but vines and twigs and dead
trees, thorny bushes. That's all that's on the tree. Is this planet's called the Kaldar Trinary system? So it's a planet within that system, because Phee brings it up when she looks at the compass and she says, hey, these coordinate markings are for the Kaldar Trinary system. And I never heard of that system before.
Well, nobody else either. Not even Tech had heard about it.
Right. It's off the charts. And so Phee says that's because that's where the treasure is. You know what I'm saying? And so they go there and they find it's just this rocky terrain covered with thorny bushes and dead trees. And I think you're onto something, Jason. I think that Mechazilla beast torched the whole place.
Yeah.
At one point in its history. I mean, it could have happened a long, long time ago. Now, the Sith connection kind of throws me off a little bit. Could this be some sort of big war machine that ancient Sith used? But it is mentioned that everything there predates the Republic. It predates the Old Republic. It predates the Jedi. It predates everything. So probably unlikely it's Sith in nature. It might have some dark side running through its veins, but it's probably not Sith.
The Sith go back thousands of years, don't they?
Well, I mean, to have the Sith, don't you have to have the Jedi, is what I'm saying? And they make a point of saying that this technology predates the Jedi.
Right. Yeah, because he even says, and that was fun to hear the word Jedi. We haven't heard that mentioned in a while.
Jedi.
I think Hunter says the Jedi, and she says no, before the Jedi. I did a little Googling, I got to be honest. And I Googled, and I came across something called the Jedi. And I'm like, oh, that's what Jimmy gets all the time when he sees new Star Wars. He gets a Jedi. But no, I found out that it was like
Skywalker OG.
It's a precursor to the Jedi. And so there was some speculation online. I don't think that was something that was deliberate by the creatives necessarily, but there was some speculation. When your mythology is as big as Star Wars, you can kind of you can make these connections when you want to. Not saying you shouldn't, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it was by design. But yeah, there was something about the Jedi. But yeah, you're probably right. If it predates the Jedi, it most likely predates the Sith as well. But something wrecked this planet. And what I do think, there are some corollaries, because we're seeing a theme here of wrecked planets that the Empire is, leaving in its wake, and we're sort of hopping around, that a lot, in the lead up to the Empire and the building of the Death Star and all of that. So, Geonosis, Camino itself, and you were talking earlier about how this system was off the charts. Well, they're from a planet that's off the charts, Camino. And when she was talking about how, I just couldn't help but think when she says that's where the best treasures are, I was thinking, well, that's where the Bad Batch is from. They're from an uncharted planet. So I thought that was kind of cool. The other thing that was just fun is just all of the cliched, classic treasure hunt tropes. I love that stuff. I'm such a fan of, obviously, Indiana Jones, but the Goonies, the National Treasure movies, the Mummy movies, all that stuff. So, falling floors, booby traps. But there was one sort of device that it is used a lot. And I was trying to remember, because I haven't seen Indiana Jones and the Crystal Skull, but I feel like at the end, no, I've seen it. I haven't seen it very, I saw it. I meant to say I haven't seen it very often. I think I've seen it like twice, maybe 3 times. But I believe that the destruction of that temple that they're in with those aliens is caused by them taking something out of there. And this is something that we see repeatedly, where once the treasure is removed, One-Eyed Willie's treasure, and then the ship starts going crazy and haywire. And that's exactly what happens here. But the treasure, obviously there's a legend. Phee knows about the legend. So it was almost like a fail-safe. You think that the civilization that created this thing, they start rumors about a treasure, which attracts people, hoping that eventually someone will find it, grab the treasure, and then create more havoc and destruction. So it's kind of an amazing, they had a lot of patience. Obviously, it wasn't something that was going to happen overnight. It took thousands and thousands and thousands of years. But that's that tells me that was real evil. Like even after this thing is shut down and destroyed, we're going to make it so attractive to people to come and, get it started again. It's very evil.
We'll leave the keys in the car, and the keys are worth 1,000 bajillion times more than the car itself.
Right.
Yeah. But when you remove the key, somehow the car starts driving all over the place recklessly and without any discretion, destroying everything in its path.
Yes, so true. You take the car keys out and it goes off.
The trick is to understand this. Do not park your ship or your droid in the path of this thing when you remove the key, because you're in danger of losing both. But if neither of those things were in the path of the mech and they removed the key, what could have prevented them from getting out of there, getting to their ship, taking off, and just letting this thing have at it for eternity on this planet that's already been destroyed?
What were the stakes?
Something that's already dead. So it's not really like
the Marauder was the only thing worth saving on that planet.
Right. Yeah. Right. And we lost Mel. God bless Mel.
Mel 221.
It is revealed at the end that Phee has her memories stored on her main ship, so she can go back there and she's going to rebuild Mel. Mel is coming back. We will get more Mel. We need more of that garbage can. They used to call R2-D2 a garbage can. R2-D2 has nothing on garbage can status when it comes to Mel. Mel looks like one of those rain barrels that you put outside, and the spill off from your roof fills it up.
R2, how many things has R2 been turned into? He's been turned into a mailbox. He's been turned into a cooler for soft drinks.
Oh, yeah.
He's been turned. I remember he was turned into a hamper for dirty clothes at one point. He's been turned into a trash can.
I have an R2 trash can also. Yeah, there's nothing that plucky little astromech can't do.
So I really enjoyed all of the classic treasure hunt moments. I thought that was great. The Indiana Jones stuff is inescapable. A lot of people were talking about it had an indie vibe. I thought one of the more direct connections to indie was when Omega holds up the compass and it creates those projections so that they can see the patterns. That felt to me like the medallion, the staff of Ra. How it kind of projected.
I agree with that. It also reminded me of the compass Luke has in the Battlefront 2 video game, which I never played, but I looked at all of the
that was a big part of that story, wasn't it? The the compass, because it was supposed to. Where was it supposed to be leading him to?
Octu and
Octu, right?
the location of the
course.
original Jedi temple. But yeah, definitely headpiece to the Staff of Ra
Mhm.
vibes as well. And yeah, very interesting because when you would shine lights through the aperture of this compass device, symbols would get illuminated up on the chamber walls, you know, like hieroglyphics or what have you. And it reminded me of when those investigative reporters shine the black lights in hotel rooms and nasty stains appear on the bed sheets.
Oh, no.
It reminded me of that. I'm sorry, but that's just where my mind went at that
Hey,
moment.
look at that guy on top. He had a good time, man. Look at.
The stains on these beds checked out in our lab to be fill in the blank.
Oh man, yeah, it was. They do have that sort of, and then I also was thinking about those. You remember you'd get those. Sometimes it'd be on the back of cereal boxes, and you'd inside the cereal box, you'd get like a piece of like thin, like red plastic or vellum, and you would hold it, and it would block out all of the red on the map in this back of the cereal box, and then you'd be able to do the puzzle, that sort of thing.
Oh, sure, I remember that. Yeah,
Yeah.
lots of fun. Yeah, decoding.
Yeah, right. The decoder,
Decoding your
decoder.
breakfast cereal. But also at the beginning of this episode, we see Omega, and she holds up a piece of shattered glass, and she looks through it, and it kind of gave me a flashback to that first episode of the season when that old guy gives her that kaleidoscope to look through.
Oh, right.
Like, treasure. You know,
Treasure.
so she's looking for treasure everywhere she goes. That's kind of a recurring theme for Omega as far as her character goes in season 2. She's on the hunt for sure. She's looking for treasure. She's a pirate. Arg.
Well, there might be some character stuff going on here, because in a previous episode, she does overhear. I think it's Echo talking to Hunter about Omega, and we're in this position because of Omega. And part of her, because Omega, think about it, she's not really a greedy kid. I don't think that money. No. She loves adventure. She loves spending time with the guys.
Yeah.
But I also think that if she might feel that if they found the treasure, if they got the ultimate payload, that they'd be free. They would have a certain level of freedom, and they would be able to do what they wanted to do. They wouldn't have to be working for people like Sid and Phee. Though, speaking of Phee, it seems like Omega is pretty taken by her. She's definitely a willing audience for all of Phee's stories and legends and that sort of thing, which is a kid thing. But I gotta, this is something that I was thinking about is Phee really the legend that she claims to be? Is she a pirate like Hunter says, or is she a treasure hunter? Is she Indiana Jones, or is she Hondo Anaka?
There might be a little more Hondo to her background in Indy, because I think she's in it for profit.
Yeah.
Indiana Jones was never in it for profit. These belong in a museum.
Right. Yeah. Total idealist. Yeah.
Be like, oh, these belong in a pawn shop. Yeah. So and obviously she associates with the criminal underground, which is something Indiana Jones never did. So that's 2 strikes against her. And in this episode, they sort of foreshadow her, or they make it apparent that she has a tendency to stretch the truth a little bit.
Right. Yeah. Tex says, this story changes every time I hear it.
Right.
But then
she likes to rewrite history.
Right. But she recognizes the coordinates on a compass that is thousands of years old as being, that to Kaldar Trinity. So there's something there. I mean, that shows.
There obviously is.
It's got to be more than just being a criminal, though I think she is.
No, you're bringing up great points, and I'll give props. I thought the vocal work was great, and You know, I wasn't the actress comedian wasn't on my mind so heavily throughout this episode. I really started to feel like she was falling in step with the character, and so I wasn't, constantly thinking of the actress all
You
the
weren't
time.
distracted by it being Wanda Sykes. I was a little bit
Well,
more
it's
so in
nice.
the first time she showed up. This time a little
Mhm,
less so, but then I found myself paying a little too much attention to it and then like, oh, is she really
mhm.
dialing this back? Is she really,
Mm.
how
I
how
I
you
thought
do, but
I
yeah.
thought it was a good performance. I thought, vocally she delivered, and she'd been on my mind because as I channel surf at night, I caught her guest hosting The Daily Show, which isn't a show I really watch normally on Comedy Central, but I stopped there. I was like, oh, well, Wanda Sykes, she's in my orbit now, with Star Wars and stuff. So let's see, because and I used to watch The Daily Show a little bit when Jon Stewart hosted it, but, the Trevor Noah era, I never really ever watched it. There was just a smugness about him that turned me off.
Yeah.
But Wanda Sykes in there, I was like, "Okay, let's see what they got," you know? And she seemed more dialed back doing that than she does on The Bad Batch, in my
Interesting.
opinion.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
that's
Interesting.
why I think she really kinda fell into this role
Yeah.
and was able to leave her own, Wanda Sykes comedian actress behind and just fall into this role. And so I appreciate that. That's why I think she did a good job. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd love to know the backstory. It's hard I don't think Wanda Sykes is in a position where she auditions for things. I think Wanda
Oh,
gets
no.
asked to do things. Do you have
Yeah.
do you have a story? Or do you know
I
what
do
the
not know
connection is?
how Wanda Sykes or Rhea Perlman or Ernie Hudson, I don't know how they land in The Bad Batch. A lot of times it's these agents who represent a lot of clients
Mhm.
and they get in good standing with the production.
Ah, yeah.
And
Yeah.
so that becomes a source of talent then for the production. And it all gets siphoned through one office, it just makes it easier. So maybe if we did some digging, we might discover that Rhea Perlman and Wanda Sykes et al. Are represented by the same
Yeah, it could be
talents
the same agent. Like,
company.
Ernie
Yeah.
Hudson, I'm pretty certain he's done a bit of voice work, so I think he's in that circle. He's on that Rolodex or whatever it is to call. But yeah, like a Wanda Sykes, who, as you mentioned, she's doing the Daily Show, came off of doing Larry Sanders, had her own sitcom, plays Vegas all the time. It's like it's always interesting when you see these types of actors where you go, they don't really need to be doing this.
Yeah.
But obviously there's something they want. Maybe Wanda's a big Star Wars. I would love to find that out if she's a big Star Wars fan or something.
A lot of
Um,
performers relish the opportunity to cash in on vocal performing. It's too easy for them. Too
yeah,
easy. And
yeah.
they roll the trucks filled with money up to the house. Now, I don't think a production like Bad Batch really does that. I think a lot of these actors get paid scale for this kind of thing, at least the ones who are regularly involved with it. D. Bradley Baker certainly does a ton of heavy lifting, and I think he gets paid, with without getting into deep paycheck here on the show. I think he does get compensated for more than just showing up.
Yeah, I think well, first of all, I think he has to because there's the rule we talked about voice actors are allowed per the SAG contract. I think it's SAG
Yeah,
that would allow them to only do 3 characters per.
I think that's yeah, I do. I think
And
that's a
D is
union
doing,
thing.
I mean, God, there's some episodes where he's, when you got a bunch of clones plus the Bad Batch, he's doing dozens. So I bet he has his own deal that he's worked out. Um, I had to laugh at her way Phee describes herself. She's a liberator of ancient treasures, and I thought, yeah, I went through a phase as a teenager where I liberated stores from a few items in the aisles.
Oh,
I
Jason's
was a
got the sticky
liberator.
fingers. This is
I think
a
every
confession
kid.
going on here.
No, I mean, I'm not bragging. I am not proud of it by any means.
Jason.
But I think, I feel like almost everyone has that one experience. Um, Anyway,
How'd that
but
fall in
it's
my
nice to know.
pocket?
I'm going to call I was a liberator. I was a liberator. I was also trying to count and track all of Fee's nicknames for the Bad Batch.
Oh yeah, she got some good ones.
Muscles,
Yeah.
for Wrecker,
Yeah.
Bandana.
I like Bandana. That's one I like.
Better Bandana than calling him Durag. I think Bandana. Can you imagine? She's like, Durag. I wrote down Goggles, but I think that's a Sid one. I don't think that was Phee, but I thought that at one point she never called any of them by their actual name. I don't think Sid does either. It's always these nicknames. By the way, we're a call-in show, so if you're new, we got the number to put up on the screen, 708-866-1737. So if you're within the sound of our voices and we're live, like right now, you can give us a call. Patreon supporters to Rebel Force Radio get to jump to the head of the line. Our call screener, Tyler, is standing by, so we'll check in with him in a little bit. So please give us a call. It doesn't have to be about just this episode. If you want to talk about something that happened last week, that's fine too. Or the Bad Batch, a lot of these things, a lot of these conversations are about the character arcs and what's going on and what the trajectory. If you have a guess as to where things are going, we'd love to hear it. So give us a call. Thanks for the super chats. Let's get to some of those right now. Here is Clone Squadron Radio. As a Clone Wars Generation fan, I get so hyped every Wednesday now to be back in this animation style and to continue the story of the clones. Yeah, absolutely.
I was thinking that this week. Just the brilliance of the animation over at Lucas. You have guys like Joel Aaron applying all that atmospheric shadow and lighting. And so it really brings a place like the Kaldar Trinary system to life. I was really impressed with how just incredibly, almost lifelike that environment looked like.
Dude,
as a Havoc Marauder was landing there.
I got to tell you,
beautiful.
I was thinking about the lighting in this episode a lot because they were doing a lot of flashlights and lanterns and stuff. And I can't wrap my head around how they do lighting in animation. I just can't. I can't figure it out. I know they have all kinds of tricks and it's computers and stuff, but it's not real. And it's amazing. It really is amazing. The lighting.
I think a lot of video game advancements in video game technology really translated over into animation in such a way that it's profound. And guys like Joel Aaron are really at the forefront of all that stuff, as we've seen him develop the whole look, not only in Star Wars animation, but in live action films like, episode 2 and episode 3. So that's Joel. He's kind of a genius when it comes to that sort of thing. And he's really developed a lot of the technologies we now take for granted when we're watching this crap. Yeah. But the visuals in this episode alone, I don't care about dialogue. I don't care about story or anything. Just the visuals of what was going on in this episode alone really knocked me off my feet. I was so impressed with how this episode looked. And then you bring up the lighting again. When that mech was tumbling down and collapsing and the Bad Batch are inside, it was these cutaways to them bouncing around in the shadows as the thing was slowly falling. It was, I felt like I was getting bruised watching these guys get bounced around in there. So I was really impressed with the visuals in this. And it is a direct advancement of where Clone Wars Season 7 left off. We're seeing them use those models and techniques.
This was one of my favorite of the puzzles that they had to solve, was when they had to find a way to walk on the ceiling, and I'm like, oh, dancing on the ceiling. And, how are they going to do that? And I thought they were going to have to grapple or whatever, but no, they were like in a big cylinder and the ceiling became the floor. Really clever stuff. Very video game, I gotta say.
Yes.
A lot of this stuff, it's like, oh, I've done something similar to this before in a video game.
Kind of another connection to the Jedi Fallen Order game too. Some of these puzzles they had to solve are very similar to some of the stuff Cal Kestis has to figure out on various planets. on various missions.
Well, we got a super chat about that very thing. John is asking, do you think the Zepho and Rakatan references mean we'll see characters from the game appear, like Prof or Grease? I have to recuse myself because I don't know any of that.
Okay,
So-
Grease is the little dude on board Cal Kestis's ship. This guy's, a kissing cousin of Ernest Borgnine. Okay.
Okay.
Does anybody remember Ernest Borgnine?
Oh,
Has
absolutely.
anybody seen the Kane Mutiny here at Disney?
Oh,
All right.
Airwolf, man.
Airwolf, that's right. He did that TV show. Was it Jan Michael Vincent?
Jan Michael
on that
Vincent
show?
was in that. Yeah.
Outstanding reference. But yeah, so he was out. And then the other one is Prof. Is that the lady with the bug eyes who was on board the ship as well? I can't remember. And then what is Rakatan? Holy crap, man! When you start getting into video game references and you're talking Rebel Force Radio, we have to refer to like big ass books like this one, The Art of Jedi Fallen Order. So let me just make sure we're speaking the same language here. Prof or Grease. Hey, let's move on to the next subject, and maybe we'll come back to Jedi.
All right,
Fallen. Not really prepared for such detailed conversation about a video game. I was
told there would be no video games.
That's great. Hey, John, hardcore, man, hardcore. I love.
Yeah, he's going for the deep cuts there. I found a picture here. This is Prof.
He's one of those guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, those guys, that's an Elo Asti right there. And it's one of the most boring alien concepts I've ever seen, but yet somehow Disney thinks this thing is the bomb. From the creature shop of Neil Scanlon. Neil Scanlon. We really need a fresh new... what do I always say?
We need a new take on
an enema.
Live.
And let's get some fresh people in there making the creatures. Let's get Paul Bateman and Kyle Newman in there and FJ DeSanto and you put them in charge of something, for crying out loud. Those guys. Thanks for ruining my career, Jimmy Mack. Just filling time on a podcast. What do you want from me?
Hey, Fart Party's here. Just wants to tell us that he loves us. Well, we love him. So we clink the beers.
Yeah, that's Chris Sorrentino, one of the best. He does a fart party is when Baby Belushi gets together with his sons and they have a boys' night and they, eat like tacos and they hang around, watch TV and fart and just be guys, Right. That's what a fart party is. I learned that last night. I'll be appearing on Chris Sorrentino's podcast, Super Live Adventure. I don't know when, but we recorded it last night. It was one of the best damn times I had behind a microphone. Was cursing like a sailor, Swank.
Oh, man.
It was liberating. You want to talk about liberating. That was liberating.
Yeah, Super Live Adventure. You can check that at superliveadventure.com. And I am sure that we will be bringing you the details of when that episode becomes available with Jimmy Mack.
Yes. Yeah.
As soon as it's released.
What do they say? NSFW. Okay.
Oh. I see. So it's Jimmy Mack After Dark.
Yeah.
I
love it.
We were going to do RFR After Dark. We've always talked about that. We come on at midnight, do a live stream, let it all fly. I don't think the world's ready for it.
No, the galaxy is not ready for it.
The world gets less and less ready for it with each passing day, I'm afraid.
Yeah, that'll be our last show.
For sure. Right. All right, we got super chat from Sal B. Crum. He says, I typically just enjoy Star Wars, but this episode did 0 for me. 0? Phee Genoa, another character who is great at everything and has zero fear of any situation. Short round, not in this episode. # make Pizza the Hut canon. I see he's got a cause.
Yeah.
Sal B in the Pizza the Hut. Yeah, I mean I get it. I totally get it. If you're looking for a mythology episode, if you're looking for a continuation of some of the overarching themes and plot lines, yeah, it didn't have any of that. And this is the second episode in a row that didn't have any of that. And this didn't even have any, it introduced, well, it didn't introduce, but it continued our sort of brief introduction that we had earlier with Phee. Whereas in the last episode, it seemed like the thing that we kind of gravitated toward was, they're calling into question Sid's loyalty to the Bad Batch. So rather than to continue with that, all of a sudden Sid's not in this episode, and we get Phee. And but I think what it's doing is it's showing that I think it foretells that the Bad Batch they're going to get certain kind of missions from Sid, and they're going to go on adventures with Phee. So I think she's going to be kind of in and out, and whenever they need to break the rut of, what I don't know how you'd classify the missions of the Bad Batch. Could be springing somebody, could be protecting somebody, could be, any number of things that a criminal or seedy individual might need. But we've seen now 2 treasure hunts with Phee, or motivated by Phee. Neither one of them paid off, by the way. So I think that's probably where the 2 are going to differ. Or Jim, it could be a handoff. Are we looking at potentially a handoff so that when Sid makes her sacrifice, we talked about that maybe, and she's going to make some grand sacrifice for the Bad Batch, that they have another person to be giving them work.
Well, I think there is something about the relationship between Sid and the Bad Batch that might indicate we're coming toward the end of that relationship. And Sid admitted to the Bad Batch at the end of the last episode, after that racing adventure, she said that, I owe you guys. Okay.
Right.
So they're not really at her beck and call so much anymore, but they are mercenaries. They're guns for hire. And so they will go out to try to earn some fortune, because that's who they are. They're soldiers of fortune. But why do they have to keep going back to Sid? And will Sid make good on that claim that she does owe them? Will she come through for them? I think that's the next step in their relationship. Sid is going to be challenged probably by the Empire to reveal the whereabouts of the Bad Batch, and she's going to cover for them. And then they'll be even. And I didn't feel that way until last week. And she said, that she owed them. But upon thinking about it, we didn't even really talk about it on the show last week. But upon thinking about it, I started to come to that conclusion. That's how she'll pay them back. She'll cover their backs one last time, and they'll go off somewhere else. Because they got to break the rut of the whole Sid sending them on adventures. And now, you put Phee in there. I mean, it's just the same old stuff, just with a different person leading the way. And I think the bubble is going to burst on that here in the next couple of episodes. And that's going to put the Bad Batch out there, out into the galaxy. And then they're going to fall into the big picture story that a lot of people want,
Right. Yeah. I mean, a lot of us thought that this was going to be a season that was going to be about, Crosshair, and we did get an episode about Crosshair, but that they would be on a mission to get him back somehow. And we haven't really seen that. That hasn't really shown up as really a goal for them. And that could be because of the way that their last encounter went at the end of season 1. So
he could have left with them. He chose to stay on that platform by himself. What a loser. But, that was his choice. And I don't see them extracting him from the Empire or anything like that. I think his path has been laid in front of him. That episode 3 of this season really showed us, like, Crosshair was kind of living this mundane life where he would, wake up, eat breakfast by himself. He was being shunned by his fellow soldiers. He couldn't even get breakfast finished without it being interrupted, and he gets sent to the, head officer's office, and then he gets his marching orders, and then, the next day the same thing happens. And
right.
So
yeah.
I don't think he's satisfied in his existence. And upon hearing that Cody went AWOL, And I firmly believe Cody did go AWOL. I don't think this is any kind of cover-up story. Some people have suggested, well, they're just covering it up because like someone like Rampart just shot Cody and disposed of the body, and now they're saying he went AWOL.
I wouldn't want that to happen off screen. That's
No.
too important, especially when they built Cody up.
That's a good point. That's a good point. The fate of that character. Why bring him back just to kill him off screen? It doesn't make any sense. I think you have to take that on face value when they say he went AWOL, because the other clones just went missing. It was a mystery. Oh, where'd they go? I don't. But the Empire didn't have any excuses for them. Right. They didn't say the other clones went AWOL. They didn't say anything like that. They just, where the hell they go? Well, I don't know. But with Cody, you know, he's out there. He's out there. He went AWOL, and they want to apply some justice to that and bring him in and put him in front of a tribunal or something. And so that's probably why they're making it known Cody went AWOL. Let the other soldiers know. Maybe they'll bring him in, and they'll bring Cody into justice, and we'll make an example out of him. So I think it's definitely to be taken on face value that Cody split. And so Crosshair knows this, and Crosshair, oh, you could just leave. I can go AWOL. This sounds pretty good. And so I think that's where we're heading with Crosshair.
So Crosshair could likely go AWOL, and then his paths would intersect with the Bad Batch. And it's like, okay, well, now where does he stand? He doesn't have the Imperial baggage. I think, you know, a great bit of irony would be, what if Crosshair got himself, what if he did go AWOL and got himself in a sticky situation and he needed the Bad Batch to help him out? Yeah, you know, what if he hired the Bad Batch for a job that he couldn't do himself?
That could be an interesting twist for sure. Yeah.
Another little subplot here with Phee is, you know, her relationship with Omega. She's clearly charming, Omega. She's entertaining, and you know, what kid doesn't like to hear all these great adventure stories? I remember as a kid, there was an old man that lived in the apartment complex with us, and he was a sniper in World War II, and he was a bodyguard in Vegas for mobsters. Yeah, and my buddy
told you guys.
And my buddy Pete and I, we used to go, and we couldn't wait for Mr. Glenn to come home. We would go and we would sit out on the porch, and he would tell us all these stories. He was bodyguard for Bugsy Siegel, and all true story. Yeah. You know, and
is this Pete Nadel? You and Pete Nadel?
No, it was another Pete. Actually, Pete Bacopoulos and I, we would go and we'd listen to Old Man Glenn. But I was
that's
thinking,
weird.
like,
a Greek guy named Pete. How odd. Never heard of anything like that before.
We had and I remember going home, and I would say, "Oh, Mr. Glenn told us this and that and this and that," and you know, I'd be told, "Well, you know, Mr. Glenn probably exaggerates a little bit." No. But damn if he didn't show us photos. He showed us actual pictures. But it would be, you know, it's hard sometimes when you're a parent, and I look at Hunter as sort of a proxy parent for Omega, and he doesn't want this, even if the stories are true, he doesn't want this to be a bad influence, you know, on her. And also, there's probably the concern with a character like Phee that if Omega trusts her, if Omega sort of takes her into her circle, this is somebody that's likely going to let her down at some point down the line, going to hurt her. And that's the last thing you want, you know, for your kids as a parent. So I thought that his distrust wasn't so much about his ego and wanting somebody else, you know, leading the group. It was more about, I think, the influence that he saw her having on Omega.
Yeah. And also Omega might be feeling the desire to fill the void of no maternal figure in her life. You know? I mean, she came from Camino, and while that was very sterile and sanitary, she still was surrounded by female influences and mother figures. And so, like, now let's say Nala Se was sort of a proxy mother for young Omega. And now Nala Se is in custody of the Empire, as we saw at the end of season 1.
Right.
And, maybe we get to a situation where Omega, we're seeing how much influence she has on the Bad Batch. She said, let's go racing. They go racing. Let's go hunt for treasure. They go hunting for treasure. What if they're out there and they get wind of the fact that Nala Se is being held in custody of the Empire? Well, let's go save Nala Se. She was like a mom to me.
Right.
For crying out loud. Nala Se she's a female, isn't it?
Yeah, she's a female.
Okay.
Hard to tell.
I'm sorry, those Kaminoans,
Yeah. They're all very slight.
Yeah.
I mean, Filoni gave us, remember Filoni famously gave us our first look at what an overweight Trandoshan would look like?
Yeah. Ganakt.
Ganakt, right. Maybe we could get the first, overweight Kaminoan. What would that look like? And remember Boss Nass. I remember this, we're all like, wait a minute, he doesn't look anything like Jar Jar Binks.
Yeah.
But he was royalty, he was a leader, and of course, he probably doesn't have to do much manual labor.
Physically, he identified as a Gungan, but he didn't have the eye stalks. So
he didn't have the eyes.
Puzzling. He looks like a vastly different.
Or was his face so fat that the eye stalks
filled in?
Right,
filled in,
maybe.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think just like the rarity of a guy with his features amongst the Gungans must have been considered something sacred, and that's why he became the royalty. Why he became the leader of the Gungans is because, he's one of those. He just looks that way. He's a green frog, and the other Gungans are pink frogs, kind of morphed with snails. Because of the eyes,
Yeah, frog and a snail. I never thought about that.
Yeah.
What do you get?
You don't want to think about that. You don't want to think about how that mating process goes down, but somehow it does.
Hey, my son
and we end up with Boss Nass.
He told me a funny joke the other day. I'm sure he saw it online. I don't think he came up with this on his own, but he said, "What's the temperature of a tauntaun inside?"
Go ahead. I know what it is.
Oh, I never heard this one. Lukewarm.
No,
lukewarm. I never heard that. Okay. Well,
Star Wars fan dad joke.
Yes.
I think that one's been around for a little while.
I haven't. I'm behind. All right. We got a couple more super chats here. Let's go and see. This is George Stice. Hello, George. Where are you? There you go. It says, Ep was pointless and only made to spice up the trailer. Wow. That's the tail wagging the dog.
Okay.
Was there a point to it? The point was to entertain. But there was certainly, not going to pretend that there was any kind of great meaning from it. Fart Party comes back and says, Mechazilla. I think that's what he's. Mechazilla.
I like it.
All right, that works.
I still say Mechazilla beast, but
Well, we got to keep it in universe. We got to keep it.
I try to.
Right.
I try to.
All right. Let's see. We got. Please give us a call 708-866-1737. Again, if this episode didn't do it for you, tell us why, and let's talk about last week's episode, this season, whatever's on your mind tonight. As we talk about Bad Batch here on the Bad Batch After Show. Let's head over here, Tyler. I'm looking at Tyler. Tyler, I can see you. I see one caller here, but doesn't look like it was screened. Is this safe to take? Oh, you're giving me the thumbs up. Okay. All right.
Okay.
Good. You never know. You can't just let anybody on this show. You're on with Rebel Force Radio and the Bad Batch After Show. Hello.
Hey, this is Matt from LA.
Hey, Matt from LA. You sound like you're in the car. Are you in the car driving around listening to this?
I am. Should I go to speakerphone instead?
No, this sounds great.
Fine.
No, I think it's amazing that we got people driving around in LA listening to this show right now.
Nothing else to do.
Yeah, heading back from work. Just wanted to hop on the Bad Batch After Show. I'll be honest, guys. Didn't expect to be thinking about sunken Gungan eyeballs in Boss Nass, but hey, that's what Star Wars shows are for. Am I right?
You never know where the conversation's going to go, Matt.
Exactly.
I love it. Well, hey, I just wanted to shout out this episode. You guys already touched on a couple things. The visuals, spectacular yet again. Seeing Lucasfilm Animation add layer after layer of different elements onto this Clone Wars animation style is just so good, so nice to see. I loved all that aspect. So I just wanted to shout out that one more time. The other thing I wanted to mention was, let's talk about this crazy mech beast for a second. I feel like even the Bad Batch is writing off what they just witnessed when they hop out of the thing and they say, well, the legend was true. See you next week on the Bad Batch. But my goodness, what a creature. What a creature. I'm thinking, it's Old Republic clearly, or where is this thing from? We're getting Jedi vibes from it, but also it's a weapon of mass destruction, clearly. So I just love the world building of this. I love this planet. It's destroyed nature, clearly. Are there more than one of these mech creatures? What do you guys think?
There you go. That's a good question.
Thanks, Matt. Appreciate it,
How many
buddy.
more of these things
Drive
are
safe.
underground?
Yeah.
How
Another
many
thing
more
that I
of these
thought of
things are
was well, Godzilla comes out from the ocean. He comes out from under the depths, so that's consistent. Also, War of the Worlds, coming up from underneath. So the beast from beneath. This beast doesn't live in a cave. This isn't the dragon that you have to slay in the cave. This is the beast that has been there all along, underneath. So yeah, that's cool. But are there more? Did they get a patent on this thing? It's absolutely enormous. I don't even know how you would really think about the scale of it, because you never really see the Bad Batch, I don't think, in contrast to it. Do you? In the episode?
No, you never see anything outside of it except maybe the little droid Mel who's running away.
Oh yeah,
from it.
right.
But it's not really standing right next to it. It could be a mile away for all we know.
Right.
And same thing with the Havoc Marauder.
Yeah.
Those are the only things that we can really use to base the scale of this thing. But I think it was, the size of a very large skyscraper.
Yeah. A mountain. It was a mountain.
It was huge.
Yeah. And of course,
it was referred to as, the heart of the mountain, that's the rare crystalline stone that is the key to an ancient power. Makes it very valuable, and that's what they were after. So the heart of the mountain.
I was thinking that, okay, this is going to be another one of those where they find this ultimate weapon that is going to somehow have, some, maybe, because this is obviously post Return of the Jedi, or excuse me, post Clone Wars. I'm getting all confused now. And that this might be something that could lead up to the Death Star and that sort of thing. They're always looking to enhance and increase their firepower, or could have been Star Destroyer technology later on or anything like that. But I think that the takeaway is that this kind of almost unlimited power has been around the galaxy for a long time. So this is not necessarily unique. And maybe the thought is, we talk about how history repeats itself. You got the First Order, and before the First Order was the Galactic Empire. And you keep going back further and further and further. And here you got this civilization that created this monstrosity. And who knows, maybe this thing was responsible for the destruction of the whole civilization. Maybe they created a Frankenstein. That could be it as well.
There you go. I believe that's true. It was like a Roomba that kills. But those are all great thoughts to think about this thing, the legend of Scaranal. And I just fear that it's something that seems very compelling to me, and I hope it just doesn't get forgotten by Star Wars. Like the Zillo Beast was forgotten by Star Wars.
We were told that Zillo Beast was going to figure into something later.
To something.
Yeah.
But you know how that stuff shifts with the wind. But
Yeah.
in animation, you have the opportunities to tackle all sort of different ancillary story ideas and stuff and take your time with it as well. So maybe somehow, I also fear that that's the only one. That's the only mech on the planet. I'd like to think the whole planet has a bunch of them buried underground, but something tells me that's a one and only thing.
Yeah.
You know? I really do.
And it just, like Wally had to go around and clean up the planet. This thing just went around and burned down the whole planet.
Exactly. Yeah. That's, sometimes I notice like in forest preserves around me, they have these like controlled fires to clean stuff up. And that's probably what the original intention was for the mech. And then, or maybe it was a war machine. I'd like to think it's more like a war machine, something made to just devastate anything and everything in its path.
Saber Myth says mech army.
Yeah,
Imagine
bring it.
that.
Bring it, Palpatine with his Star Destroyers. Forget that crap, man. Let's just get a bunch of metal Godzillas and march them all over the galaxy. Hey, you were talking about them being buried underground, and I thought about episode 9 when Kylo visits the clone of Palpatine at the beginning of the movie. And he's like, what can you give me? He goes, everything. You can be in control of this. And all the Star Destroyers come up out of the ice at once.
Right.
And they all go up. And I was like, I mean, what was happening before Kylo got there? Was Palpatine saying things like, okay, does everybody understand their cues here? Kylo's going to come here. I'm going to hold my hands up and say, you could be in charge of everything. And then, you guys pop up out of the ice at once. All right. Does everybody got this? Everyone knows. All right, take your places. Take your places.
And were there any false starts? It's like, oh no, it's not him. It's not him. It's the
right. Yeah, like at the surprise party.
Right. It's it's Steve. Yeah, that's what it is. It was a practice for a surprise party.
Yeah, but somebody parked their Star Destroyer right outside the orbit of the planet, and that spoiled everything. I saw his Star Destroyer parked out there. I knew something was up. Oh, damn it.
Yanni has a theory. He says, yeah, Palpatine was all into the Zillo Beast, wanted to clone it after it died and make indestructible armor from it. Yeah, maybe
that's right.
Yeah. And then he saw this thing. He never saw anything until he saw a mechanized Zillo Beast. I just saw a good one here. Like Skynet and the Terminator, the mech became sentient and turned on them. I think that's probably that's in my own headcanon that happened. They created a monster, and the monster turned on them and destroyed their planet, and that's why it's not it's not any of the charts, because this all happened before maybe those star charts were being put together. Turtle Wars, Mechazilla Beast, the next HasLab.
Right.
Wow. There's an idea.
Get funded? I would buy that. It's like 6 feet tall. You have it right in like your right on the other side of your front door. People come to your house, they get Mechazilla. Welcome to my home.
I would love for HasLab to look at doing something from Clone Wars, like something big.
Or Bad Batch, like the Havoc Marauder or something like that. I don't know if it's
maybe an actual pack of figures from the Bad Batch. That'd be nice.
Yeah, right. Yeah. How about some action figures first before we go?
Right.
Stuff.
Jeff. Sorry, my screen's flickering here. Now I got it back. All right. Well, again, the number to call, 708-866-1737. Give us a ring. Send us a chat. Wait a minute. Fetz Realm says, I would call in, but Jason keeps stealing my thoughts. No, No. You can't just say that. You got to call in, Fett's Realm.
Jason keeps stealing my thoughts. He's like Freddy Krueger.
I'm liberating your thoughts. That's what I'm, according to Phee.
Stop liberating things, Swank. You're only getting us in trouble here.
Give us a call. Put your money where your mouth is. I'm not.
I found it interesting at the end of the episode. Phee was proposing they go to the Vadney system to find a chalice that belonged to the kingdom of Elways. And so I'm like, Elways? What's going on here? Is the writer Christopher Yost some big Denver Broncos fan, and he's got a tribute to John Elway hidden here within the Bad Batch? I looked him up. He's from St. Louis. That's at least where he was born, in St. Louis. And among his many writing credits in animation, Christopher Yost also wrote for Star Wars Rebels and The Mandalorian. And he's written a bunch of comic books for DC and Marvel and some live action stuff too. So I mean, he's got his chops down. But I'm like, was he a big John Elway fan? They spelled Elway different though. John Elway spells his name with an A, and they spell Kingdom of Elways with 2 E's. So try to throw me off the scent, I'm sure, but I'm onto them. I caught every Filoni Pittsburgh Steeler reference he dropped into the Clone Wars. Don't try to pull any NFL team references in Star Wars animation unless you think it's going to get by me, because it won't. So
Peter says Chris Yost used to be a big Marvel Comics writer as well.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. He's done a lot of stuff. Very prolific career as far as action and adventure stories. So are they going to be going to find this chalice in the next episode? Maybe they'll hook up with Dr. Henry Jones and go off on an adventure looking for the Holy Grail. Maybe that's what they're looking for.
Well, Todd Stewart was saying next week is the chalice. 2 weeks is a crystal skull. Season finale is some dial thing. So let's get that let's get that Lost Ark and mix it in there as well. I mean, there's a few Indiana Jones things happening in the show. He falls through the floor like Indy did. Remember when he had to hop on those certain things? There's a hunter falls through the floor when they remove the crystal. It's just like Indy removing the Havatos idol at the beginning of Raiders. He tries to balance it with the sand and stuff. That was Fee's problem. She had nothing to insert into the slot. No.
So maybe they should have just stuck Omega in there and ran out of What are you guys doing? Just stay here for a while.
She's like, hey, kid, your head is about the same size as this. Plug. See, I just solved all our problems. You can thank me later. Well, it's what? Let's check in with Tyler. Tyler, we haven't heard from you yet. It's always great to have you here. Tyler Page, the official RFR call screener and the official show observer. Good to have you here, buddy. Since the listeners are giving you a little break here, what have we missed? What haven't we addressed or talked about with this episode?
Well, I'm not going to say anything I think Blake would say in case he wants to call in.
Yeah, we haven't heard from Blake yet. We need Blake's take.
I think he was definitely onto something with his video game theory.
Oh, yeah.
Because this was obviously Zepho. Or not, I don't know. It had a lot of Zepho vibes. There was a Jedi compass in Battlefront. You had the compass here. There's a lot of similarities.
It also could be compared a little bit to the Sith Wayfinder from Rise of Skywalker, because it sort of led the way and then, helped him find, what was that, Exegol?
Yeah, no, I thought there was just so much going on there. And then, so the crystal skull thing that you were talking about earlier, I thought it was really interesting because crystal skull, they put it on a skeleton, right? And then it ignites and the whole temple
That's
explodes.
right. Yes. They
that's
plug
exactly
the
what
skull
happened.
onto the... It's kind of like that. Yeah.
I mean, it ignited.
Right.
When that guy ignites, he ignites in the same way of the Sith temple.
Oh, yeah. No, I know what
too,
you're saying. Yeah, this was very cool.
Malachor.
Right there, the big energy that's shooting up. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that's why I agree with your Sith theory there.
Yeah. It looks very similar to how that energy burst shot out of the temple on Malachor when the rebels confronted Darth Maul. Yeah.
And
Very
something
cool.
to think about, guys, is just because we don't, you couldn't necessarily label this as Sith. I mean, the Sith obviously used ancient sorcery and magic and force abilities and all of that to create the Sith. So when you talk about how that energy, looked similar, I mean, you never know. That could be where they got it from. It's there's, the Sith didn't just come up in a vacuum. They are obviously the product of, many hundreds or thousands of years of, this stuff evolving. So, and as Dave Filoni taught us with the Clone Wars, there's lots of different types of Force users out there, so it's not always just Sith and Jedi.
Yeah, it makes me wonder. I would like this series to start talking a little bit about Mandalorians. I know that's like that was covered. That's been covered a lot, and it's getting covered in other areas. But I feel like it fits right in there with the clones and Omega. And I don't know. I would wonder if that was a relic from a Mandalorian war with the Jedi, but they're using Kyber in there, so I don't know. Probably
there
not.
is this recurring. Yeah, I was saying earlier, the devastation of these worlds, and there's a succession of them. Mandalore is one. Geonosis, Camino. We see this world. There's another one that I'm not thinking of. And then, of course, the ultimate is Alderaan. That's the ultimate expression of ultimate power, is Alderaan. And they're looking for ways to. What's the planet that was just completely? That was Camino. That was completely bombarded by the Star Destroyers. Yeah, okay, that's what I'm thinking of. So they're always looking for ways to, get more and more power and become more and more of a threat and be able to keep a tighter stranglehold on the galaxy. As far as this episode being a letdown or disappointment or nothing, where do you sit there, Tyler? You think there's room for episodes like this? They don't all have to be super entwined to the mythology, or would you like to have seen more of that?
Well, I think this is all right. I mean, it was exciting. Season 1, I feel like they had a lot of focus on plot development, and this is more character building. I know that's like a cliche saying, but I feel like that's what's happening. And I don't know if there's more to come. I'm totally okay with them spending time on this.
Yeah.
And it felt fun,
Yeah,
I was
fun.
excited, like front to end. Like, what else can I ask for? I don't know. I'm here to be entertained, and I'm being entertained.
That's exactly right. You're there to be entertained, not always be educated. If we think about Star Wars lore and mythology as education, sometimes it's just about having fun. And, we're having fun here each and every week on the Bad Batch After Show. And, for every couple episodes like this, I agree with Jim. I think that the back half of this season is going to be loaded, and they're going to be throwing a lot at us. Our Bad Batch After Show opener, you see Palpatine, and, they don't just bring Palpatine into stuff, for laughs, and they bring Palpatine in. He's sort of the big guns. There's got to be something pretty, I think, exceptional behind it. And I'm hoping that it's going to be the furtherance of this, this notion of, perhaps wanting Omega, for whatever her powers and abilities are. Is there any possibility that she's got force abilities or been fused or is there any sort of force anything with Omega? Probably not, but there's definitely an interest. There was at one time certainly an interest in bringing her back, and it might be more than just having the original or the closest to the original DNA of Jango Fett. I feel like there's got to be more to it than just that. So, all right. Well, Tyler, thanks as always, buddy, for being here and screening the calls. And
thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, man, it's been great. We really appreciate it. And I think that, as I said, Jimmy, I think you're going to be right. I think that we're going to be looking at probably more of these types of episodes between now and the halfway point, but then we're going to get that halfway point and it's going to be no turning back. And the beauty of the Disney Plus, I'll tell you something I love about it, is you don't have those gaps. It's there every week, every Wednesday. They don't take breaks for holidays or anything.
Very true.
So it's not like I remember with Clone Wars, sometimes they would take sometimes more than 2 weeks off, in the middle of a season. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But we don't have to wait for that. So it's been great.
We got it hitting us fast and furious and really keeps me in the groove, And let's, if you want to call this a filler episode or whatever, it bounces right off me because I know we'll get more next week. Like I said, I think patience is a virtue here. There's this element that is developed within the 2023 Star Wars fan base that demands the greatest tale ever told with each and every edition of the Star Wars universe. And I think those people, might not have been around during the Clone Wars era where we'd have to sit through a few weeks of downtime.
Blue Shadow, Virus, Poison Snapple, all those.
Sometimes it's just fun to go on a little side adventure and go to places in the Star Wars universe we haven't seen before. This episode certainly impressed across the board as far as the animation and visuals go. Sometimes Star Wars is worth watching just for that. And I think these guys are some of the best in the business as far as producing those sort of animated sequences. But, I don't want anyone to sugarcoat their feelings when it comes to talking about Star Wars, but demanding everything to be the greatest of all time each and every week is getting a little tiresome. All it takes is one episode or one single shot of it in a show, one single scene. And some of us are declaring Star Wars is dead. I want to respond to them, much like Maximilius in the Gladiator movie. That great moment when Russell Crowe turned to the crowd in the Coliseum and said, "Are we not entertained?" I said we. He said you, but I said we because I'm part of the fan base. And I could be a little critical too. I get it, but geez, man, have a little patience. Let's ride this out a little bit. And, as far as the professionalism and the execution of telling this encapsulated story in this episode, this side adventure, I thought it was expertly delivered to us. So, if all animation could be this great, we'd be really spoiled. And all animation is not this great. Trust me. So, really good stuff, man. Yeah. Really good.
All right. Well, we'll be back here later this week with Rebel Force Radio, the weekly
podcast.
Were
those my final thoughts?
Oh, do you have more? I'm happy to turn it over. Do you have more?
Well, I just want to say Puffer Pig, not in this episode.
Oh, that's what you're saying. Oh, sorry. Sorry. No, we'll be back with more Rebel Force Radio. The weekly podcast will be here. And I know that there are a number of folks who are just discovering us through these YouTube live streams and the after shows. We do have a weekly podcast, so you want to check that out. That's, more general Star Wars news and interviews and discussion. Yeah, we talk a little bit of Bad Batch, but we talk everything Star Wars. We always bring you great audio highlights. If anyone associated with any of the new or emerging Star Wars projects are out talking, Jimmy Mack is very, very diligent, and he pulls all that audio for you, and we break it down and tell you what it might mean. But if you want more Rebel Force Radio in your life, the best way to do that is through Patreon. Go to patreon.com/Rebel Force Radio, and you'll get the weekly full show video. So it's not just these after shows that have video. We record everything, and you get the weekly podcast as a full show video, plus exclusive podcasts you can't get anywhere else. You know what? I'm so glad you brought that up, because I have mine as well. Whoops, I'm doing it the wrong way. check this out. These are awesome. So our good pal and the guy that does all of the album art, the show art for the Rebel Force Radio Weekly Podcast, Chris Amarim, he sent us these keychains, these little acrylic keychains with that light up, and they do all kinds of crazy things. They strobe, they change colors. You can just have one solid color, but this was to commemorate the 10th anniversary of RFR. So thank you, Chris. We love you, buddy, and thanks for all your work. And that was very kind of you to send these. These are really, really cool.
You need about 30,000 of them to send to our audience.
Wouldn't that be great? Yeah.
Maybe 40,000, actually.
That'd be awesome. Anyway, so yeah, thanks for bringing that up. Thanks to Chris. So check us out at Patreon. Also, YouTube, of course. We've got all of our after shows archived there. Going back to, oh man, we've been doing after shows for all of the Disney Plus series, every episode, every season. So if you're enjoying this and you're a fan of The Mandalorian, or you wanted to see what we thought about Obi-Wan Kenobi, Book of Boba Fett, they're all there. Check them out. I love it. It's like a time capsule because we know so much more now than we did, at that time. So that's a lot of fun. Also, you can follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Rebel Force Radio, on the Twitter at RFR Rebel Force. But the main thing, if you want to help us out, just keep listening. Tell your friends. Subscribe to the podcast if it's possible to subscribe to your podcatcher of choice. If you can leave a review, we love to have reviews. Just one rule, please.
Make them good.
And you'll find us here next week for more Bad Batch After Show live Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Be looking at episode 6. Episode 6. I don't have it open in front of me, so I don't know the name of the episode, but we'll be here. So we'll see you next time. Big thanks again to Tyler. Thanks everybody for watching and listening. We'll see you next time. For Rebel Force Radio, I'm Jason.
I'm Jimmy Mack.
And remember,
The Force will be with you, always.